What is going on, everybody? ZyoniK here, and in today's video, I'm giving myself a challenge of a triple electric team. This is a tall order, as it's going to be very tough to win against the meta teams in the Single Type Cup Great League Edition. But let me know down in the comments what other challenges I should try, and let's go ahead and get right into the battles. All right, getting into the first battle, we have Electivire on the lead versus Cofagrigus. Now, what I found with Electivire is I used it on the lead because there'll be a lot of times when you go for the Wild Charge and then need to bail out. Now, I paired this team with a Minun and an Electrode. The Minun basically is a damage soak for us. It does pretty well at putting down some neutral damage across the meta, but ultimately it is a sponge because it's got a good amount of defensives there. Now, we do land the Wild Charge, and we're going to go ahead and commit to the farm down, and let's see what they decide to bring in. It is going to be a Machamp, so we're going to go ahead and throw another Wild Charge right here to force that shield or just KO, and then now we're going to swap into Minun, and Minun again is used kind of as a sponge for us. Does have access to quick attack and discharge, which is really nice. Now, what's cool about this team is its biggest weakness, right, is going to be ground type Pokemon, which in all honesty aren't very common, but we do have Ice Punch and Grass Knot for that, which is pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and go for the discharge. The Machamp decides to let it go through, and now unfortunately we weren't able to farm down, so we got to come in with Electrode right here. So we have Electivire as a sacrificial swap, so we're going to go ahead and shield this cross chop here, and then look to try to do as much damage as possible. And they bring in a Samurott, which is perfect. This poor Samurott had nowhere to go. We had a triple electric team, so that is unfortunate for them. Now we are able to survive the Hydro Cannon, and then we're going to look to go for double discharge. Now, I went for Hyper Beam here, obviously for the booms and the fun, but Foul Play would make a lot of sense if you guys want to try that. Now, I don't know if I would suggest this team. It was very challenging to get wins here in the meta, but I do think some of these Pokemon are pretty cool if you want to synergize them into your own teams. Obviously, Electrode has been a staple for a long time in the Kanto Cup, and then Electivire here I think is pretty cool. Now, this is a tough one. Superior on the lead. This is like worst case scenario. It does so much neutral damage to us. It's tanky, and we do resisted damage in most situations, but thankfully we do have access to Ice Punch, which is super effective and actually does quite a bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and shield. It is going to be a Leaf Tornado, which is bad for me, and we got the attack drop as well, so now I got to swap into Minun here to catch the charge move. My Electivire has been the key to my victories with its energy management, and like you guys are seeing, I'm using Minun as a damage sponge here, so we're just going to go ahead and just try to do as much damage as possible with quick attack and discharge, but this Superior is going to be able to take us down pretty quickly. As we only do resisted damage here with the charge moves, as you guys can see, because of the typings. But Electivire, it's going to be the key, right? Ice Punch for the dragons and grass and ground. And then we also have the hard-hitting Wild Charge that just chunks a lot of the meta. Now, Minun goes down, and that was the goal, right? Damage sponge. Now, we come right back in with Electivire and look to go for the Ice Punch right away. I don't want to get caught getting hit with another potential Leaf Tornado, and boom! Down goes the Superior. All right. So we got energy. They bring in a Shadow Granbull, and this obviously is another troublesome Pokemon for us in this meta because of its just raw damage it does with Charm. And in order to counteract that, you want to be resisting it with poison types or steel types. And unfortunately for me, this is a triple electric challenge, which means any Shadow Granbull teams are just gonna kind of shred through me, which is unfortunate, which is why I said this was a challenge. So good game right there. But we got Electivire now versus Vigoroth. All right, let's see what we can do here. We're going to go ahead and swap into Minun. I don't want to stay in that matchup with Electivire because the counter and body slams are really going to add up, and we want Minun to soak as much damage as possible. They decide to go for the body slam right away, which is fine, and they bring in a Clefable with Charm. So at least we have it against the Minun here where we can get 2 discharges off, and it might get the Clefable low enough where an Electrode could come in. And unfortunately, I don't get the second one right there. My move timings were off, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and come in with Electrode now and look to hard farm down with Volt Switch, as we're going to be forced to give up a shield here. I don't want to get, Meteor Mash is going to be resisted, but the Moonblast as well would still do a lot, so we got to stop that damage. We're going to hard farm down. Remember, there's still the Vigoroth, but we do have 2 charge moves ready to go, and it's going to be a Registeel in the back. Now, this is what's very cool about this team is when you face off against teams that are more energy driven instead of fast move. I know we had Charm and Counter, but a Registeel isn't too threatening for us because we have so much energy stored up on both Pokemon that this is looking to be a good game, as we're going to be able to get to another one in time. This is going to be forcing that final shield from the opponent, and then we can let Electivire run. And they do decide to swap into Vigoroth, so we're going to go ahead and swap into the Electivire, and we do get to the Wild Charge in time. And this, oh man, this just does so much damage. Actually, my Electivire is not Shadow. My bad right there. Boom! Got him. Alright, so I got to turn off the live Shadow right there. I thought I had the Shadow Electivire. I think that might be Ultra League. So I'm going to go ahead and shield the Focus Blast and then go for another Wild Charge, and that's going to be a good game, very well played. So able to dance around with that one by soaking a lot of damage, and they ultimately decided to surrender right there. So good battle. Alright, moving to the next one, we got Electivire versus Muck here on the lead. So once again, kind of tough because of the fast move damage that can be applied. So we're just going to look to go for a Wild Charge and Bail. We can get to it very, very quickly thanks to the fast move of Thunder Shock. It's high energy gain like Mud Shot and Psycho Cut. So we're going to go ahead and we land it, but we swap to Minun no matter what. We got to clear that self debuff. So for anyone notice, I've noticed a lot of comments, if you get a debuff on yourself or a buff, right? And you can clear it by swapping the Pokemon out. Once it comes back in, that buff is no longer applied. Now they swap in a Clefable here into the Minun, which is going to be pretty good. We've seen this matchup before, but this is a Fairy Wind Clefable, which is really cool for us because we can actually not get farmed down, right? They have to throw energy, which means we can safely shield and look to take this into the ones, because what they now need to do is they have to throw energy in order to take us out, and we're going to get to another discharge very quickly. So they have to throw, otherwise I get to another one in time, and I don't know if they had just enough energy right there. Maybe that last Fairy Wind fast move was enough, but we get 2 shields. And this is a perfect situation for Electrode to come in and farm down with Volt Switch, and has tons of energy for their backline. So Meteor Mash is enough to take us out. Electrode's going to go ahead and come in, and this is where I get kind of risky. Like, you know what? Maybe I just decide to let it go. And it was just a Meteor Mash, which is fine. So they didn't get to the Moonblast in time. I am able to fully farm down. We have a Hyper Beam ready to go as well, which is always fun. And they decide to bring in the Muck. So I'm going to go ahead and just farm down once again, but they do get to the charge move in time, and I'm like, you know what, Thunder Punch, even if it is, I just want to shield, maintain all of this health and energy that I do have, and the final Pokemon is going to be, once again, a Registeel, which we can handle very well because we can go back-to-back discharges here. I mean, not back-to-back, but discharge, swap to Electivire to go for the Wild Charge, and then throw a discharge on the back end, because Registeel cannot build up to 2 charge moves because of the energy cost that Zap Cannon, Flash Cannon, and Focus Blast require. So we go ahead and just go down to the Focus Blast, and now we have the discharge ready to go, and that is going to be a good game, very well played. Not a lot they could really do right there, and that's why the energy on this team needs to be managed very well if you're going to give it a try. Alright, Electivire versus Cofagrigus once again. Again, kind of a tough matchup here. Shadow Claw and Dark Pulse does a lot of damage, but we can put a lot of pressure down with Wild Charge. Now, I decided to go for it right away because I want to look to dip now into Minun and clear the debuff and force them to kind of throw energy here and utilize Minun as a damage sponge. Last time, I think in the first battle, I built up to basically 2 Wild Charges and then went for it. But now we draw out an Umbreon right here, which is a tough Pokemon to take down for this team because we don't do a lot of damage to it. It's all neutral, and Umbreon is so tanky that this team has some trouble kind of getting through, which is why I said this is a challenge, right? This is not some of my meta teams that I've been running. It's a challenge video. Shadow Granbull is tough. Umbreon is tough. Both of them together are very tough. So we're just going to go ahead and keep going for discharges. They will be able to farm us down. And now we are in a very tough position, but thankfully we do get to this last discharge in time in order to get some much needed chip damage. Now, because this Umbreon has so much energy, it's going to be better tanked on Electrode than Electivire because I don't have any energy to throw right away. Maybe if I had an Ice Punch, maybe I'd come in and throw that. But ultimately, we need to come in and soak this damage on Electrode and look to no shield. I know it's kind of risky, but I'm risking it for that biscuit right here, so we're just going to go ahead and farm down. We have a charge move ready to go. Cofagrigus comes right in, and I decide to go for the discharge right away and look to get the final shield, or the first shield I should say. Now I swap into Electivire, and now I'm going to commit to the hard farm down with Electivire right here, because this is the big opportunity for us. And they decide to swap into a Muck, so I'm going to go ahead and go for the Ice Punch first, knowing that I can't get to back-to-back Wild Charges. So I go for the Ice Punch, we get the shield, I go for the Wild Charge, and I don't get it. So the Muck now is going to be taking us out, unfortunately. Had I survived, this is why those poison jabs are so tough. Had I survived that damage from poison jab, we would have gotten the Wild Charge off, and then it would have been a race between Electrode and Cofagrigus. And I think Electrode might have won it with the fast move damage because Cofagrigus was out of energy. So that's going to be a good game. Again, tough ones here. All right, we got Electivire now versus Cofagrigus once again. This is a very common lead in this meta. And we're just going to go ahead, go for that Wild Charge, and then look to bail into Minun, I should say, because we want to draw out some of those really tanky Pokemon in the back and also hold the energy. Now, in this case, I decide to stay in and look to shield right here and then see if I can farm down, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it, so I decide to go for the Ice Punch. And the reason being is I already debuffed myself, so I don't want to take too much damage from these Shadow Claws, and now I got to swap out. But there's a Cherim with Razor Leaf in the back, and I'm like, oh my goodness, of course there is. Never seen this Pokemon, like, ever in the Great League. I mean, we've seen it every now and then in Great League, and they also have a Primeape. So Counter and Razor Leaf might just shred through my team right here. So unfortunately for me, the only damage left for Cherim that I have is going to be Ice Punches, and my Electivire is extremely low. So I probably should have stuck to my play call of throwing Wild Charge and bailing so that I keep Electivire healthy, which is what I've just kind of learned as I've gone through these sets. If your Electivire is low on health, it's not going to do a lot unless there's a Registeel on the team, right? Because the Lock-On doesn't do too much damage. So I decide to shield here. It is going to be Night Slash, and then I swap into Electivire now to catch the next charge move, which is going to be a close combat. And now I come in and hard farm down. They do get to another charge move. It's just going to be a Night Slash though, thankfully. And now I have a potential win condition, and that's if the opponent thinks that they can just no shield and farm me down. So I decide to go for the Hyper Beam. You know, you never know. No, they decide to shield. That's going to be a good game. Cherim just farms us down. Tough one. These grass Pokemon are tough to deal with. Superior, Cherim there with Razor Leaf. Next game, we got Electivire versus Shadow Hypno. And Shadow Hypno is so tough to deal with the confusion damage. It's a nightmare. And we do see a swap out, and it's going to be a Registeel in the back. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's an Umbreon back there as well. So that means there is a lot of damage that I need to do to an extremely tanky team. So this is going to be tough. I'm going to be able to get to 2 discharges at least, maybe 3 if they try to overload on energy instead of going for Focus Blast right away. Let's see if we can get to it. No, they just decide to throw, which is fine. We're going to go ahead and let this go. And this is where I was thinking, you know what, maybe Foul Play might be a bit more viable for me because Electrode with that much energy could do a lot, but instead I decided to come in with Electivire. If I had Foul Play, I probably looked to come in. Now I decided to go for Wild Charge right away. Might have been a misplay right there on my end. I probably could have loaded up a bit more, but now we got to swap out into Hypno, and this is where I wish I would have had Foul Play. I mean, granted, the Discharge is still going to do a lot of damage, but it's not a one-shot capability. I am forced to shield as well, as they do have Fire Punch. And I'm very concerned about what they have in the back, and it's actually going to be a Shadow Machamp. So, Shadow Confusion and Shadow Counter. This is tough to kind of work through, and we are behind on shields. Now, we are even on shields right here, so I am able to get to another discharge in time, but this Shadow Machamp, I think, is going to make quick work of my team, as they can safely double shield and fully farm me down. My Electivire has no energy, which is why I said it was a mistake not overloading on energy with Electivire because I really needed it right here in this matchup. So that is going to be a good game, as the Shadow Machamp will be able to get to another charge move in time. So there are misplays. I'm not a perfect player, right? I just like to have fun. And unfortunately for me, this is going to be a good game now. I'm still going to fight the good fight. I decided to go for Ice Punch right here, but there is a Shadow Hypno in the back with Confusion, which is just going to one-tap me. And actually they decided to go for the charge move, which is fine. But I think if I had managed my energy on Electivire a little better, I think we could have done pretty well right there in that game. So good battle. All right, moving into what I think might be the last battle. We got Electivire versus Registeel on the lead. So pretty nice matchup for us because we can just do so much damage with Wild Charge, and the only damage Registeel can do is a charge move, so we don't need to worry about it too much. I thought this was a bit quick. I shield anyways, and it was a flash cannon. I was like, there's no way that's a focus blast, but I don't want to get caught getting hit with it if my timing's just off. But no, it was right. It was just a flash cannon. Now we go for Wild Charges, and they decide to shield, which is perfectly fine by me. I'm going to go ahead and go for another one here. Try to do as much damage as possible, and then we need to kind of clear this debuff, right? We don't want to keep having it. So I'm going to go ahead and swap into Minun now, trying to catch the charge move, hoping that it's another flash cannon, which is going to be resisted, which it is. Beautiful. That doesn't do any damage to us. And they bring in Shadow Hypno. So we got the Shadow Hypno onto the field, and this is very ideal against the Minun because we can use the Minun to chip down the much needed health that we need to get away from this Hypno so that Electrode can farm it down. They also decide to throw energy, which is perfect for me right here. Granted, I would have gotten to another discharge in time. They do have Ice Punch. So we got to come in with Electrode right here and look to go for the hard farm down because the Volt Switch damage is going to be enough in order to potentially farm down. So I'm going to go ahead and shield. It is just going to be another Ice Punch, which is fine. And now I'm hoping there's 2, there's 3. Yeah, no, they do get to it in time. I thought I was going to be able to get the next fast move through. So unfortunately for me, they get to another Ice Punch in time. So I decided to swap into Electivire to sneak through the fast move to maintain health on my Electrode and energy. And they bring in a Hitmonchan. So I'm going to go ahead and go for the Ice Punch for the shield bait because I should have enough energy. I think one more should be enough to get the Wild Charge, which we do get to in time. This is perfect. This is why energy management on Electivire can be so clutch. Boom! See ya! And then we do see Registeel come in. They're desperately trying to farm down, but I do get to the Ice Punch in time, and thankfully we banked all that energy on Electrode. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for the Hyper Beam. I have to land one during my sets, and this was the best opportunity to do it. So we're going to go ahead and go for the Hyper Beam to do the boom. See ya, Registeel. That was a fun challenge right there. Obviously, some big hurdles to overcome. That's being hard-hitting Shadow fast moves, especially paired together. So a Shadow Hypno and a Shadow Granbull. It's very hard to work through that, especially with added bulk to the team. But overall, I thought it was a fun challenge. I think I was really impressed with what Electivire can do in its damage output and its coverage, but it definitely needs a bulky team behind it in order to make it a bit better. Electrode did what Electrode does, and that's doing very well with energy advantage and applying neutral damage, and Minun literally just soaked damage for me. It wasn't all too impressive right there. It was just a sponge, kind of like utilized Dusclops in a previous video. But hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Again, if you haven't already, let me know down in the comments what other challenges should I try. All fire team, all water team, whatever. Want to have fun as we have another week of this meta. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and like always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.